The U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit has opened Tuesday in Washington, D.C. The United States aims to boost cooperation with African nations as President Joe Biden hosts dozens of regional leaders. Beginning on Tuesday, the three-day summit will focus on key challenges, including the climate crisis, good governance, food security, and global health, as well as bolstering U.S.-Africa trade and investment opportunities. United States National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told journalists that the summit is rooted in the recognition that Africa is a key geopolitical player. Sullivan adds that 49 African heads of state and leaders, as well as African Union, have been invited to the summit. Join us live from Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. We're joined by Ignatius Annor, a journalist with the Voice of America. Very warm welcome to you, Ignatius, and thanks for joining us on NC Continental Prime.
Thank you very much, Benga, for having me. How do you do?
Great. Now, Ignatius, a three-day summit of African leaders in the United States is underway in Washington, D.C. What should be our expectations as a continent? What should Africans expect from this summit?
Africans should expect what the U.S. officials have called great partnership. It's a partnership they seek to deepen. It's a partnership they seek to build and continue to even institutionalize as much as possible, according to officials that we have spoken to today. $55 billion have been given to the continent. It will be released within 3 years. But not only that, President Joe Biden and the White House announced that a special representative will be established. A special representative council, I should say, will be established. And for the first time, what that council is expected to do is to ensure that the ideas that come out of this three-day summit will be implemented. They don't want to end up with something
empty promises
that will be on the shelf at the end of this 3 days. So it's Africa essentially should expect deeper relationship with the United States.
Now, Ignatius, what do we know so far about the attendance of the African heads of states there? We know that some were not invited. And you did talk about the $55 billion that has been committed to Africa for various projects. What else? What other policy statements have been made?
So 49 African heads of state were invited, including the African Union Commission chairperson, Musa Faki Mahamat, who not too long ago I saw addressed a forum on peace and security alongside Anthony Blinken, who is the Secretary of State, and then the Secretary of Defense, Austin Lloyd, including the Mozambican president, Felipe Nyusi, and other African leaders as well. 4 African states were excluded because of political instability, and I'm talking about Mali, Sudan, Burkina Faso, and then Guinea as well. Eritrea and Somaliland were also not extended invitations because Eritrea has not got diplomatic relations with the U.S. at this time. Relations are strained, and Somaliland is not a state recognized by the United States. So as I speak to you, it's only Zimbabwe and South Sudan that have their foreign ministers representing those states. But aside of that, all the others that have been extended invitations have descended onto the Washington, D.C., which is the capital of the United States. As I speak to you, I do know that a few deals have been signed with some of those countries. Just a while ago, we had a call for media personnel who would want to cover a deal that is being signed between the U.S. and Ghana, for example. Rwanda have also signed a deal with one of the agencies. The Just Transition is a conference that is ongoing as we speak to you. But let me introduce somebody that you will really want to have. Robert Sport is the Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Bureau Affairs, and he joins me. I'm going to have just a quick conversation with him. Join me, please, Robert Scott. Thank you very much for joining me. Just come here with me. So there are a few questions that our partners in Africa would, our affiliates, I should say, in Africa would want to know. What will be the takeout at the end of this three-day summit?
I think we're going to have an amazing signal here in the United States and across Africa, the partnership that exists between all of us. Having an opportunity for our president to meet with heads of state and heads of delegation, but also the broad thousands of meetings that are taking place here in the 4 days, the 3 official days, and the 4th day that we've added, will solidify our work on climate change, on health, on peace and security. We started with an amazing reception with young entrepreneurs, underlining the vitality of the creatives in Africa and here in the United States. So it's across the board, 4 days of intense meetings, which I think will be a statement to our partnership.
So at the end of the day, what should the people of Africa look forward to? And I ask this question because this is a second US-Africa Leaders Summit. The first one was held under President Barack Obama in 2014. Nothing has happened since. It's been 8 years. The continent of Africa has partners with other global powers like China, like Russia, like Turkey, like the UAE, and even the European Union. And they have institutionalized these kinds of summits, which demonstrate commitment and seriousness towards a lasting partnership. Is this where you're heading? Because it looks like it's just going to be a one-off thing.
No, absolutely not. This is not a one-off. We would anticipate that there will be announcements, which I don't want to get ahead of the President of the United States, but I think that you can anticipate that there will be announcements which will underline that this will be an ongoing process. There will be structures put in place. Those have been, I think, already announced somewhat in the press. There will be a diaspora council which will be created in order to solidify and provide a structure to engagements with the diaspora, an important component of our relationship. And you're going to see a lot of follow-on activities which are going to come out of this. I know that we will have a lot of VIP travel going to the continent in the coming year and two. And I think those will underline that this is a launch, a relaunch, and that we will be working together in the coming years.
And for many folks on the African continent as well, the question is, why now? Why has the US decided to deepen cooperation with a continent that essentially is being looked at as a world player in global geopolitics?
No, you're absolutely right. I think, President Biden, one of the first actions that he took was to tape a congratulatory message that was sent to the African Union for their annual meeting. That's one of the first actions. Secretary Blinken has traveled to the continent twice and has launched the US-Africa strategy. And I think in all those documents, you see in all the statements, there isn't a problem set in this globe that won't be solved without partnership with Africa. So our partnership is for issues on the continent, but beyond that, the point that you just made is that the continent is a increasingly important player in global issues and affairs, and we here in the United States certainly acknowledge that and want to work together with Africa to address those challenges that are coming, whether they're in the economy or for climate or for peace and security.
Right, and I wanted to just quickly follow up on this question to know,
okay.
I'm sorry, Benga,
Ignatius, thank you very much for your time. We do have to move on to other items in the news. Thanks for your time.
Okay, Thank you very much, Robert Scott. Thank you very much. Apparently we've got to go.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Benga.
Thank you, Ignatius, as always.